Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
A very good afternoon to one and all. With immense pleasure and privilege, I would like to introduce our expert for the next session, Engineer Freddy Soman, sir. He is a hugely experienced construction material specialist with more than 24 years of experience in the field of construction materials testing and quality assurance and quality control of projects. He possesses a unique combination of practical and technical experience combined with a master's degree in geology. He is presently working as Assistant General Manager Quality ULCCS Limited, Calicut. Before that, he was working with Element Materials Technology Limited in Oman, headquarters at UK. I welcome you, sir, to deliver the session. Thank you, sir.
Hi, ma'am.
So,
Thank you. Uh, can I start, ma'am?
yes, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you all. Uh, Respected principal, sir, Matthew, sir, madam, distinguished all faculties and the distinguished guests and attendees. My name is Freddy, as ma'am mentioned. I'm basically an engineering geologist, and I have started my career as a mechanical engineer in a construction company in Oman in 1996. From there, I worked in few of their projects as their particularly dam projects as their mechanical engineer and all. Then I moved into the laboratory division as their head of civils department. Then I moved on to lab manager, then to country manager, and finally when I leave in 2008 19, I was heading them as the technical director for Oman operations, and looking after the commercial and business development side as well. Now, 2019, I joined ULCCS as the head of their quality QC quality department. And at the same time, we set up a laboratory to international standard here in Calicut, namely Matter Lab. That is coming up actually. It's 75% of setting is over and it's started functioning, but the chemistry lab and all still some more equipment has to come from Germany and also setting up going on. And at the same time, I'm the general manager of that laboratory as well. And I am very pleased to have this opportunity to give a talk, particularly on a subject related to non-destructive testing and everything in the concrete testing field. Now I'm going to present my topic. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay. I have a problem actually. Recently, last day, actually, I got my eye affected with the conjunctivitis, viral affection actually. I'll be switching off my video. In case you have, sometimes if I am fast or something, actually I'm not that much experienced in taking classes and all. So in case you have any doubt or something, you can flag it up. And also, I'm not that familiar with the Teams actually, because we mostly use Zoom or this Google Meet actually. But that's why if you have any this thing, actually, you can raise your hand or you can just put the notes or you can put your mic on and then you can talk in case I'm going fast or if I want to stop somewhere, you just give me a flag. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
You could see the presentation.
No, sir, it's
No,
not.
sir.
Now you could see.
Yes,
Yes,
sir. It
sir.
is audible, sir.
Oh, okay. The topic is concrete structural condition assessment methods. As you might be knowing, the concrete is one of the. It's the second largest, largely consumed product after water. Second largely consumed material, and as such, it's very important to have this branch actually forensic engineering of the concrete structural elements inspection engineering this thing and everything. It's a newly come up in it's a newly developing branch as well worldwide. Because when I was working in Oman, actually, we are part of a British company. That's one of the world's biggest laboratory actually. It's having presentation in about 30 countries, and we're having about 200 labs worldwide. That's one of the biggest of its kind. Still, in lot of areas, particularly the forensic engineering side and everything, lot of developments are still going on actually. And what are the most sophisticated methods and everything will be gone through today. We'll be going through today. And these are some of the contents we have incorporated actually, particularly factors affecting deterioration, investigation of structures, in situ testing, what are the in situ testing sampling, what are the laboratory testings after the structural condition assessments, investigation of low strength results during construction stage, general repair methods, economics of repair, and these are some of the areas we will cover during the discussions today. And as you all know, concrete, its components and its properties at various maturity ages can be tested in many ways. The concrete properties assessed by the methods ranging from strength, just a strength test to various tests are there actually, including durability and everything, durability and its capacity to protect the embedded reinforcement steel. While some methods require, and as you know, some of the methods are extraction of samples from site, and at the same time, and some of the methods constitute of in situ testing, doing testing at site. And this is, and also our aim of investigation and testing regime should be to obtain sufficient information on the condition of the structure to enable appropriate remedial steps to take in. That's why before we go for, if we have some problems in the structure and everything, before we go for any repair or any remedial measures, it is imperative to have the structures to be studied properly to understand what are the intrinsic and what are the underlying problems. After that, only we have to go for the remedial measures. And it's necessary to have sound understanding of the underlying issues before we set out any repair programs or anything. That's the one important thing we all wanted to keep in mind. And what are the, when we go for the, what are the major factors affecting deterioration? When there is a building, sometimes it is new building, sometimes very old building, whatever it may be, there are several factors that may affect the deterioration of the building with time or the period of time. The major causes are maybe inbuilt, some of them are inbuilt problems such as inadequate design, poor workmanship, use of unsuitable materials, that we are sometimes they use materials that are not suiting to the correct specifications and all, inappropriate use of cement or inappropriate concrete mix design. The mix design itself may be the wrong mix design, use of wrong mix designs. Again, features which appear during construction, and sometimes some features which will appear, that is, features means distresses. Some distresses may appear during construction stage itself or shortly afterwards, and problems caused by the actions of the local environment on the completed structures. That is, over the period of time, due to the environmental effects, the buildings or structures may deteriorate. And the features which appear during construction or shortly afterwards, a lot of distresses are there, particularly cracks, spalling, hissings, and everything. You might be knowing that there are cracks, several types of cracks are there. Like before hardening stage, plastic shrinkage cracks are there, plastic settlement cracks are there. Sometimes the construction movement would be there, formwork movement would be there, sometimes subgrade movement would be there. And sometimes in our this part of the world, like Kerala and everything, the frost action is less. But sometimes if you go move to Europe and everything, sometimes early frost damages would be there on the structures. And similarly, after hardening also a lot of intrinsic cracks may happen. After hardening also a lot of intrinsic. That means after hardening means just immediately after the construction. There's a lot of, apart from structural, this in thermal, sometimes thermal cracks may happen, early thermal contracting cracks can happen, then physical damages can happen, sometimes the drying shrinkages, these type things, lot of factors would be there. And the deterioration would be sometimes due to a particular factor, particular reason, or sometimes due to a combination of reasons. That's why once we do the investigation, these things and everything, it will help us to, it will aid us, it will aid us to reach to a conclusion on what would be the cause of, what would be the root cause of the damage, what would be the root cause of the deterioration. Once understanding the causes only, we can suggest that we can go for with the proper repair actions and everything. Then types of displacement that occur in concrete structure are most often related to center, that as I mentioned earlier. Mostly when we go for some old buildings or old structures and everything, it's mostly due to its exposure to environment conditions and everything related to deterioration, likely various type of. Then we have some in the next slide. We have summarized a lot of, we have just classified a lot of environment related failures and everything. These are very important. When we go for structural investigation, we want to understand when the planning stage as well. If when we have to understand the problems, actually, we want to understand what will be the causes and everything. Just a summary only, but it will be very helpful. It's a good tip maybe too. For example, if you go for a marine or coastal structures and all, there are possible causes of deterioration could be chlorides, sulfates, and marine creatures, marine organisms, and disease and everything. As you know, chloride, it will definitely corrode the reinforcement and everything, particularly in the splash zone area and these things and everything. We have experienced in a lot of bridges and these things and everything, most of them in the splash zone and everything, how that affects the chlorides and sulfates and everything. And sulfates, again, when it comes to the sulfates, it can again salt weathering. Sulfates can even damage the concrete also, apart from the even the strength also, apart from, because sulfate will not cause that much into corrosion of the reinforcement, but it can deteriorate the structure. So it can reduce the strength. It can sometimes damage the concrete. That's why sulfate also dangerous. Again, some marine creatures, marine organisms. When we come to the marine structures, these all factors to be taken care of. When we come to normal bridges and highway structures, most of the problem, about 90-95% of the problem would be lying with chlorides from the environment. That sometimes through the dust and maybe from the condensation of the vapor when this atmosphere moisture and everything, with dust and everything, when it condensate actually, that will make some precipitation. Once it is evaporated, it will cause a lot of chloride. This one infused into the concrete and everything. That will cause a lot of corrosion. That's when we go to the bridges and highway structures, more than 90%, the reason behind the deterioration could be chlorides. When we come to normal buildings and everything, mostly due to carbonation and chlorides. Carbonation, as you know, we will explain in the later slides and everything. We will explain more about carbonation and everything. Carbonation is one of the, carbonation can lead to corrosion as well. Similar chloride contamination. Carbonation can also lead to corrosion. Then when we come to the buried structure or structures in contact with the ground, there could be sulfates as normal, sulfates, chlorides, salt weathering. Here, and when you're in abroad and everything, our specification mostly insists to go for the sulfate testing in the soil, the underground soil, subsurface soil and everything. When we go for borehole investigation also, it's very imperative to do the sulfate content as well, because that can also lead to damage and deterioration. But here I am not sure, when I check some specification and everything, I'm not sure whether sulfates are there in the specification. In the routine testing, sulfates are not included, I think, but sulfates is also very important. Ground slabs, when we come to the ground slabs chloride, mostly the chlorides are causing deterioration. Similarly, industrial plants, there could be chlorides mostly, tunnels, chlorides and sulfates. Then the trafficked areas, apart from the chlorides and sulfates, there is chemical contamination and everything. Even abrasion can also cause damages and deterioration. And same like the trafficked areas, abrasion can also cause damages. And sewer pipes, particularly the sewer pipes and everything, mostly in majority case sulfates. Due to the sulfates, as I mentioned earlier, it can damage concrete and it can cause loss of section, loss of concrete section as well. That's why sewer pipes and all, we should be very keen on the sulfate testing and everything. We have to focus more on to the sulfate content on the nearby soil and everything. We should be very keen on that. Now we wanted to go for the investigation, or when we plan for an investigation and everything, we'll actually the sampling rate, the desk study. Before we go for any investigation, we have some problems. For example, if construction time also, sometimes some issues may come up, issues may arise. Like as I mentioned earlier, cracks. Commonly, a lot of cracks may appear. Sometimes some other businesses like spalling or whatever it may be. during the construction stage or after construction, if we go through an old building, whatever it may be, whenever before we go for a we go for an investigation, we should go for a test planning and testing. That's also very important because they're based on that only. That's why we sometimes, for example, when we were out here also recently, some companies contacted our matter lab also to do some structural investigation of some old buildings and everything. That time also, first we will conduct a site visit. From the site visit only, we will come to know what is the actual condition of the structure. And now, based on that one, we will decide how many samples to be taken and the testing locations from where the samples to be taken and what should be the number and up to what extent the samples to be taken. These things, everything should be based on the preliminary site visit and these things and everything. That's it's very important. And again, what are things we want to ponder it, we want to take taken into consideration are whenever we plan for an investigation study, the members of different types we want to incorporate. For example, if we go for a building investigation, we want to incorporate columns, beams, slabs. Sometimes we want to excavate the footing, otherwise it will not be complete. Sometimes we studied everything, the superstructure, everything we studied, and we missed out the footings maybe. Footings may be damaged, maybe not proper waterproofing will not be there. That's why we have to incorporate, even though I haven't mentioned it here, if we go for a building, particularly footings are very important, columns, beams, slab, that means different, whatever structural members, elements are there, we should incorporate. There should be a representative sampling should be there from all type of members. Sometimes after the investigation, lot of cases actually, after the investigations, we could see some patterns and everything of damage and all. Sometimes the damages would be there with the columns only, sometimes it would be beams, sometimes it's there every throughout. All the structure that damages would be there. It's a spread damage. And sometimes it will be isolated damages. And again, the spread and everything. Sometimes, in most cases, when about more than 50% cases, we could see that actually near to ground, maybe up to 1 meter level section, the damages could be more. In Gulf area and everything, gardening is close to the buildings and this thing. Gardenings are very common, gardening and watering and very common. That's we could see that when a structure becomes 25, 30 years or something like that, the iteration is more towards up to 1 meter, 2 meter section from ground level. Up to 1 meter height, it would be 1 meter, 2 meter height, it would be more. When we go top, sometimes it would be less. But it would be in another case, sometimes if we go to the near shoreline structures and everything, in coastal areas, sometimes we can see that maybe even though there is no bar action, sometimes we go height as well. Second floor, third floor, fourth floor also, sometimes we could see a lot of damages and everything because the exposure condition is very severe. That's very, very bad exposure conditions, sometimes near to coast and everything. That's why damages maybe throughout widespread and everything, damages we could see. That's why the selection of structures, this thing, everything is very important. Then typical areas of each type of deterioration. That's another part actually. Sometimes we can see delamination. Sometimes we can see delaminations would be there. Then we have to incorporate delaminated areas. Sometimes there's a big cracks that we should have representation should be there for different type of deterioration. There should be representations should be there when we deciding the sampling locations and everything. Then corresponding area that are in good condition. That's in many cases is very informative. It will give lot of tips, lot of leads actually. When we go for sound good area and bad area, lot of comparison and lot of inferences it may give actually. When we during the planning stage itself, we may include some good areas also. Sometimes some people when we go, they go for investigations and everything. They used to go for only the affected areas, suspected areas and everything. But in my opinion, we should incorporate both good area and bad areas. Then only we can get a correct representation of that particular structure as a whole. Because when we give a report or when we after that we wanted to we want to assess the structure. We want to assess it as a whole, not just a part or not just a localized assessment. It should be for the whole structure. We wanted to do the assessment and we have to ascertain the repair suggestions and everything based on that one. That's why planning of investigations are very important because we should not skip some areas actually. Then what happens actually, a lot of information would be lacking in our report when we give the report. A lot of information would be lacking. Recently in Kerala, when we came across one investigation, we could see that all the superstructure, that is not fair that I am telling the name of the structure or anything. That's I'm just giving everyone on that one. A bridge, when we went for a bridge investigation, it's a superstructure only investigated. They just listed out the area underneath the pier and everything. particularly when we go for bridge and everything, the transition zone is very important. When we skip in that zone, that means definitely it is incomplete. The report should be incomplete because you know that actually during the tide or because when the water levels can fluctuate. That's why there would be a zone that alternate wetting and drying. That can cause a lot of damage, alternate wetting and drying. These type of things, when we go for planning for investigation, these things should come into our mind actually. Then only the report will be very comprehensive. Otherwise, it will not be that precise and incomplete the reports will be. That's why whenever we plan, the planning stage is very important. That's study stage is very important when we plan and we give a proposal and everything. As a when now it's matter laboratory, as a laboratory, whenever an inquiry comes to us, that area, that particular period of time from the site visit to the planning and giving the proposal, it's very important because we want to incorporate everything based on the damage, based on the condition of that particular structure. That's just giving much. I'm taking much time on this slide because this is very important area actually when we plan for investigation and corresponding areas with different exposure conditions. That's I mentioned to you before because we wanted to incorporate different exposure conditions as well. Sometimes in a same place actually, the exposure conditions in the same structure or same if we go for a particular building or something like that, it's a different area, exposure condition would be different. In that case, actually, we wanted to different all those exposure conditions should be covered in the investigation in the investigation envelope. Where appropriate areas that have been previously repaired. That also one another thing actually. Sometimes the same structure may be previously earlier it was repaired. That area also to be incorporated. These are the things we wanted to take into consideration before we go for an investigation. Then during an investigation, as I mentioned earlier, during an investigation, different test methods and procedures may be used. Today, actually, our aim of this investigation also to give you with different options actually when you have some problem in your hand. What are the options you have in hand? Then after this one, you should be. I think it will be sometimes it will give you some clue and it will be helpful to you to know what all options would be available when you face a problem, when you encounter with an issue. That's what actually. That's why different type of test methods would be available. As I mentioned earlier, and some of them would be non-destructive methods, and some of them would be partially destructive. Same like sometimes we want to take some core samples, sometimes we will be taking some dust samples, powder samples of the concrete for the chemical cut. That all I will mention in the later slides and everything. And these types, that means that that's a partially destructive, not taking much damage to structure and everything. Even as a lab, when we go for taking cores and everything, first we'll mark out the steel spacing and everything. Then we will avoid even cutting the steel and everything. We have the equipment for that too. Actually, we will when we take a core, we will take a small. The smallest core is possible only. We will take it up and we'll just to make the minimal damage to the structure and everything. You know the core is when compared to the total structure and everything is nothing actually. That also we should always try to take the core. Always we should take the core avoid cutting steel. That there are tools to mark the steel also before taking the core. That also you have to consider before we go for any core sampling or dust sampling. You should not cut the steel. Then there are destructive tests there. There are non-destructive tests are there. And some cases we want to small break or window openings we want to make. That I haven't mentioned in these slides and everything, but that also there actually. Sometimes we want to go for correct diameter, this thing of the steel, this thing and everything. Sometimes we want to make a small window breakout opening, maybe 300 by 300 amount. Such a small opening also we'll make it. That's a destructive test actually, purely destructive. And core and test samples, these are partially destructive. Then there are a lot of non-destructive tests also. That all we will cover in the slides presentation. And provide, and some tests will give direct measurements actually, whereas some of them will give you interpreting some values that should be interpreted properly, like the rebound hammer, half cell, resistivity readings. These are all some readings, resistivity reading. But from the resistivity reading, we wanted to interpret it out. What is the condition? And that all we will cover in the later slides. These are all some of the areas. Oh, when we come to the various tests and everything, you could see that actually. And also one more thing when you want to take into consideration, in some cases Anybody want to ask any question or something? Can I continue?
You can continue, sir.
Yes, sir.
Concrete strength. When we go for various methods, actually, that now different properties on each. What are the property we wanted to find? We want to ascertain. Based on that one, there are various methods actually. And first thing, concrete strength. When we go for concrete strength, the most, in my opinion, the most appropriate method is the core test, because it will give the distinctive with the distinctive strength value. It's a direct measure. It's a direct measure actually. It's very easy to interpret as well from the core test results. That's why core is the best, most reliable and most widely applicable method for measuring concrete strength. But in some cases, near surface test, particularly tensile properties, some cases actually tensile properties are very important. For example, sometimes the old and new concrete would be there in some part of the time and some point of time, the concrete there would be some repair or something happened. Actually, there would be some interface between old and new concrete. In that case, and there sometimes we want to find out the bond between this old and new this thing. There are methods are there. We want to find out the pull-off strength. Actually, in that case, then we can find out how it is how the bond between the old and new concrete. And similarly, tensile property. Some cases, in the particularly in the near surface area, the cover, how tensile the concrete is very important in some cases, particularly because I came across in some investigation, sometimes because when we were abroad actually, sometimes even court appoint us actually, sometimes dispute comes, sometimes the faculty comes, depends on everything. Sometimes court appoint the laboratories like ours actually to do investigation and give them a report. And there was a 5-star hotel in Oman. What happened there actually is the cladding, stone cladding. The whole building, it was about a 20-year-old building. It's total, the building was stone cladded. There's some old cladding methods, but not with the screws and everything. I think it's a gluing method or something like that, the cladding. So for the cladding, they applied the method maybe, I think the old, it was a 20-25-year-old building. And not the screw type cladding and all. It's a old method. What happened actually, and even that it is about 1 point, even some area 1.5 by 1.5 meter, and some area 1 meter by 1 meter. That type is a large stone panels actually cladded to I think it was granite or limestone or something like that actually. But what happened finally, eventually, some panels has been fallen down, and it was very dangerous actually. It was near to a swimming pool area of that hotel. Luckily, it happened in the night time. Otherwise, some people could have died actually. Particularly lot of kids and everything, kids and all coming there for swimming, and then the government asked us to study the whole building and everything. There we have incorporated even the tensile testing as well. Like we will take some, we will do some course and we'll pull off the core and find out the concrete tensile properties as well. Just I was mentioning that, not just I'm mentioning that one, that experience also I thought of sharing with you. That's why lot of near surface tests are there, like the tensile. Again, the rebound hammer also being used as a strength measure, but that is not, that's a qualitative test only. It will not give that much definite direct interpretive figure. The rebound is just we can say that actually rebound is just a quick test, a verification test to compare the concrete strength variation and all. Particularly what we do in abroad and all, when there's a large building and all, sometimes the cube we are taking for some particular quantity of sample and everything, but the particular, because when the quantity is maybe we can say 100 cubic meter, 50 cubic meter, something like that only. But as a large area, if you wanted to check the strength and a comparative area, interpretive concrete strength result we can obtain from the rebound hammer, we can do in the large area fast, a quick test actually. Rebound hammer as a quick measure, a strength measure we can use, but just a comparative measure. It will give just a comparative measure only. But that can also use, particularly to find out the concrete strength variation. It's a good measure. As a quick measure, it's a good one. Otherwise, core is the best option for finding the concrete strength. If it is tensile, pull-off test is the best option to find out the tensile strength. When we come to the concrete quality, if we want to find out the general quality of the concrete, there are a lot of methods. One is whenever, for example, when we do an investigation, it's a British style actually. Whenever we do a core and do a strength test, whenever there's because we in our company and all, it was very strict actually. We wanted to visually examine the core. We want to give all the information from the core. Then only it will be complete because it's a void state of how void it is, whether it's largely voided, whether it's slightly voided, what are all the void condition, everything, how dense it is, and how the aggregates are packed and everything. That all things has to be given by visual examination. The core should be visually examined, and it should also be included in the report. Apart from the strength, then density of the core, then ultrasonic pulse velocity. That is one measure to check the concrete quality. Then petrographic analysis. The cores we will send for we can do microscopic analysis of the cores. Then we will get a lot of information that will be covered in the later slides. Then ground penetrating radar method is one of the most sophisticated, most latest and sophisticated method. We brought in here in Matter Lab. We have ground penetrating radar also. Whenever we have some concrete quality problems, some large bolts or something, we can use this ground penetrating radar. When I was in Oman, there was a doubt came into some of the people when the concrete poured actually. When the inspection team went to the site, there are some wood picks were there, wood pecks were there actually in the near to the stockpile. Then they got a doubt that some wood, then wood picks have got entrapped in the concrete. Then they appointed us to find out whether there is any woods got trapped in the concrete. Then we applied this method, ground penetrating radar only. In these type cases actually, the most best method is actually ground penetrating radar to find out if anything got trapped in the concrete or any conduits are there or any steel inside it or any bolts or anything. We can find out large bolts and everything. We can find out using ground penetrating radar method. That's why for general concrete quality, the ultrasonic pulse velocity also there. Some bolts, some cold joints. Sometimes what happens actually due to sometimes during the concrete, particularly the raft, when we go for raft foundations and everything, due to the delay in concrete supply or whatever it may be, in some cases actually, what happens? Some cold joints may form. Particularly when we are in abroad actually, with a lot of power, a lot of these powerhouse projects and everything, um, and also this one combustion. This lot of oil and gas projects actually. Lot of large foundations were there, like large foundations like 3 meter, 4 meter height foundations. In these type cases and everything, it's very important. We have to find out whether any cold joint is there during the casting of this type 4 meter height and this thing and everything. And also another test is there. This differential temperature measurement has to also to be done, but that is not in the purview of this topic. But that also, whenever you just when I speaking about the raft, I was just mentioning out actually. Whenever you go for large raft, there are two damages we get to, two failures, stresses we could expect. One is cold joints, and the other one is the differential temperature damages. Actually, that time we have to go for the thermocouple measurement. We have facility in the Math Lab for that everything. If any structure, its lowest dimension is more than 1 meter, then we should go for that. We should expect the differential temperature cracks and everything. That means from the core to the side, sometimes if the temperature variation, if more than 25 degree, definitely there could be, it can cause cracks. This type, the raft, that type concrete quality, all we can quickly check using both these tests together, ground penetrating radar and ultrasonic velocity. Combinedly, if we do, jointly we do on the structures, we can find out all these quality issues, quality distresses. We can general quality of the concrete we can ascertain using these methods. Then corrosion of reinforcement. That is one of the area of most important area actually. Corrosion of reinforcement. Whenever we want to find out the corrosion, these are the tests we have to find out. One is carbonation depth, second is the cover depth, third is the chloride content, fourth is half cell potential and mapping, fifth is the resistivity survey. That's why whenever we talk about the corrosion of reinforcement, these are the tests. Because cover depth actually somehow it is important. If the cover is less, it's more exposed to the risk of corrosion. That way, cover makes it important. So we have instruments to find out the cover, like cover meter survey. We are doing for all investigations. We are making cover meter also as a part of the investigation because it's very important. Whenever the cover, whenever a structure is very got very thin cover, it's more exposed to the risk of, more prone to the risk of corrosion. Then again we'll come to the, these all will detail we'll discuss in the later slides. That's why I'm just fastly going through that. Here, then come to the general integrity, reinforcement location, concrete porosity, initial surface absorption, water absorption, water permeability, ground penetrating radar, water absorption, water permeability. These are the tests for general integrity. This is integrity means the durability, these things and everything. When we consider general integrity and durability, these are the tests to be incorporated. Then we come to the first test, as I mentioned, the concrete coring. As you all know, it's just a we need a rotary core drilling machine and the diamond tipped bits, drilling bits. Then we can take a core. When taking the core, it can be either in the vertical direction or it can be in the horizontal direction. That was very important. And it should be the core drilling operation also very important. The experienced operators only should take the course because it's very important the perpendicularity of the core and the flatness of the core. That is why we normally go for special accreditation for the concrete coring and core testing and everything. Because if a lab is not properly doing the core test, it can give the misleading values. Sometimes the good concrete, the result will give a that will cause to give a bad result. It's a low strength value because if the core should be properly taken and it should be properly prepared, particularly the ends and everything properly cut, its the flatness to be checked, its the perpendicularity of the core to be checked. It's a very important test actually. Apart from composite strength, as I mentioned to you earlier, apart from composite strength, cores can also be used for visual assessment and petrographic analysis as well. The same. Okay, sorry for that break. Okay. Okay. Now we move on to rebound hammer testing. You might have all seen this equipment. It's a small handheld equipment, but and it's used, as I mentioned to you, this is actually a fast. Hello. Hello.
Yes, ready, sir.
I can go on, sir.
Yeah,
Or I have to wait. I have to wait further, sir.
No, you can proceed. No, sir, you are.
Okay, I'll proceed then, sir. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, you can
sir?
proceed, sir. You can proceed, sir. I am sharing the screen, sir.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. Then now, as I mentioned to you earlier, this is just a the rebound hammer is a very is a good handheld equipment. It's very easy to use, and also most widely used, actually one of the best known method actually from since all time, and it is giving an indicative. But the only limitation is it will give an indicative value only. It should be correctly interpreted to, then only we'll get some idea about the strength. As I did previously in the previous slide, as I mentioned, but just for a comparative purpose, like actually if there is any strength variation or something like that against a correlated value for some strength correlations and these purposes and everything, we widely use this rebound hammer method. Otherwise, for distinctive and distinct and figure, a strength figure and everything, we have to go for core testing. Otherwise, this is a good method. As a quick measure to check the quality of strength variation, this thing and everything, it's a good one. Now we move on to the sir, next slide. Okay, this one, as I mentioned earlier, ultrasonic is a very good method, and you can see the right side. This is one of the equipment we recently purchased in our matter lab. This is the one. This is having, as you could see, there are two transducers are there. One is transmitter and other one is a receiver. And we place this transducer in the concrete. There are three types of there are three methodologies there. Three types of measurements are there. One is direct measurement. The direct measurement, if it's a column, we can put the one transducer can be in one phase, other transducer can be on the opposite phase. But if it's in some cases, some beams, some slabs and everything, this direct measurement will not be possible because we cannot go that much via this. Their accuracy will be affected. That's why we have to go for indirect. In that case, we have to go for indirect measurement. That means both the transducer and transmitter and receiver will be in the same surface, in the same phase only. The other case, first case, direct method, the direct measure method, the transducer and receiver, transmitter and receiver, both will be in the opposite phases. That is a direct measure. That is the most accurate and most reliable measure is the direct measure. The other one, we have to apply some correction factor and everything. There is another method is semi-direct method is there. That is in the one is in the adjacent phase, and the transducer would be in the one phase, in the top phase. The next one would be in the side adjacent phase. That's the indirect measure. There are three type of measurement would be possible, because what we do here actually, pulse velocity, the pulse would be transmitted between this transducer and the transmitter and the receiver, and the velocity, the time taken from the transmitting point to receiving point, how much time is taken, that will be digitally, that time taken within the microseconds will be shown in the gauge, and based on that one we can calculate the pulse velocity reading. This pulse velocity reading is very informative reading actually to check the concrete quality. And also that also I want to tell you, the otherwise I will skip that one. If, for example, if there is a pulse, when you come across an issue like when I was in Oman, generally maybe monthly there will be 10-15 cases will come. Sometimes what happens actually, the house owner will raise will sue against the contractor in the court. Then the court will appoint us. It will be simple case maybe sometimes, because the slab or somewhere the water will drip down from the bottom. Then he will see one crack in the top. That mostly will be plastic shrinkage, plastic segment cracks. As you know, plastic shrinkage crack is very common crack actually. Whatever precaution will be very difficult actually to control, particularly in the wind events when there is wind and particular evaporation, humidity conditions and everything, very tough. But good companies actually they can control actually the windshield, this thing, everything you have to use. But in majority case, plastic shrinkage cracks are particular at some seasons is very common. It's very difficult to control also. Because what happens actually, as you know, it causes whenever the evaporation rate is much higher than the bleed water to compensate the loss of water. That time it will appear. The plastic cracks will appear. These are small cracks, hairline cracks. And what happens actually, in most cases, when the client, the building owner, somebody sees this one, it will give him a bad feeling and lack of confidence. And sometimes they will go for complaints disease and everything. That time when if anybody of you come across such a case, this equipment will help you out, because how it would be. What the strategy we took in that type case actually. Normally, plastic shrinkage cracks are always superficial only. If we prove that one, the crack, it's a crack width we want to measure it up using the monocle or something. We will measure the crack width. Then we will check the crack depth also. We want to find out. For example, if a slab having a thickness 200 mm or 150 mm, and if the crack depth is only 50 mm or 30 mm, that is definitely a surface crack only. In that case, it can be easily repaired and everything. There's not a critical issue then. That's why, in order to find out whether when we see a crack, if you want to find out the crack depth also, UPV is the best equipment. As using ultrasonic pulse velocity, this equipment, we can correctly find out the crack depth. There is some configuration is there to find out the depth. There's a method in IS standard also. Normally we use the British standard method earlier, but in IS standard also there's a method to find out the crack depth using ultrasonic pulse velocity. That's very useful. That's many. I don't know whether anybody of you uses that one to find out the crack depth, but if not, you can use this one for find out the crack depth. In the MATLAB, you can do that one also. Sir, you can move to the next slide. Now, near surface strength test. As I mentioned before, to find out the pull out and pull off test actually. In Europe and all, there's a practice actually when they construct a large building and important structures, buildings and everything, they will put some insert in it. That is later some point of time in the future, if there is some strength issue, something like that, actually they can pull out that insert and they can find out that the strength of the concrete. There is some there are some methods to interpret the strength of the concrete. That's very useful actually. In Europe and widely they're using that method. Even in America or States also they're using that method. There's a Kappa one equipment. We can do that in MATLAB also. Then we can cut that. Normally, in order to find out the near surface strength test actually, we have to, as I mentioned earlier, we'll cut a small core and we will not break the core. We'll keep the core there itself. We'll cut and leave the core there itself. Then we will pull it off using a pull-out equipment is there. That actually here we purchased an equipment from POSAC Sweden actually. That pull-out equipment, German, some good pull-out tests are there. In MATLAB, we purchased it from Sweden actually. That's from POSAC. That's a good equipment. that is normally for being used for finding out the near surface strength test. Then BRE also, there are some good methods are suggested in BRE. The near surface test also sometimes very useful in some sort of some investigations. It's very useful test. So you can move on to the next slide, sir. Okay, this is one cover meter. As I mentioned previously, as I mentioned, cover. We want to find out the concrete cover. Whenever we go for investigations, one very important parameter is the concrete cover, because sometimes the inadequate concrete cover can cause a lot of issues, the corrosion issues and everything. That's why cover also very important. Apart from cover, this equipment can also be used to. This equipment you can see, this is MATLAB equipment only. I took the photo of that equipment only. This one also came from Sweden. It's a good one. Actually, we can find out even some cases what happens actually. The drawings, the building would be very old, and we lack any structural drawings or anything. In that cases, actually, correctly we can find out. And last week also, our MATLAB team went to Ernakulam to find out this cover meter survey in some buildings, to do some surveys on some buildings actually. But there's, particularly in some cases actually, when we lack structural drawings in built drawings and everything, in that cases it is applicable to find out the reinforcement, position, orientation, and even the diameter of the rebars. Diameter of the rebars we can find out using this equipment, and also reinforcement positions, bar position, and at what depth it is embedded, that is cover, and the orientation, everything we can find it out that one using this process rebar scanner. And there is one head unit is there for the scan, as a scanner unit is there, and that will be connected to the readout unit, and we will get all the readings in it, and which is having a computer interface as well. And most of these equipment have the UPV testing equipment, all these equipment have computer interfaces as well to connect to the computer, and we can take all the readings and everything. Okay, next slide, sir. Sir, we can next slide, sir.
I have changed my slide.
Okay, sir. Okay. Carbonation depth. This is also one of the very important property of the carbonation depth. Whenever we go for investigation, as I mentioned earlier, when you see corrosion can mostly be due to chloride contamination, or sometimes it can be due to carbonation as well. Over a period of time, most of the buildings, when exposed to the atmospheric conditions, certainly it will carbonate, and carbonation determination of carbonation depth also very integral, very important. And it should be also be incorporated in the testing. Is how we determining the carbonation depth. Actually, we will make a fresh surface onto the concrete, and at that fresh surface, we will spray a phenolphthalein indicator. And when the phenolphthalein indicator color changes, when the color is pink, that means it is not carbonated. Whenever there is a color, when it goes to colorless, sometimes when we spray phenolphthalein indicator onto the fresh surface, if it shows colorless, that indicates that it is carbonated. That means pH would be more than, carbonated means pH would be less than 9. If it's carbonated, not carbonated means pH will be alkaline. It will be alkaline. It will be pH will be more than 9. It's a good measure. The carbonation is very important test. Okay, sir. We can move on to the next. Then next is the half cell potential survey. Half cell potential is very important test actually to find out the corrosion potential. How much potential is there for that structure to get corroded? Whether corrosion is happening now or it's going to happen. All these measures we will get. This test we are doing actually for one or slab. What is not that clear. Half cell potential is a very, very informative test to find out the corrosion. Potential. And half cell is also having copper sulfate. Copper sulfate cells are there, and it will be connected to it. So equipment fully is there. The equipment is there. In that one, it is there. Copper sulfate cells will be connected to a voltmeter, and the volt reading is being reported like 1 centimeter, mostly in 1 centimeter. Most of the equipments are giving readings, SUT readings, half cell potential readings. ohm, right? Ohm resistivity. Sorry, volt. It's voltage reading. Potential voltage reading. The next page, in the later slides, we'll give you the values in that case we mentioned. Okay. Next is the resistivity survey. This resistivity survey is giving in ohm centimeter. I'm going to mistake in the previous one. The resistivity survey, actually, the resistivity survey, how we are, this one actually we normally do parallel with the half cell because as we know, these are all electronic equipments and everything. That's why in order to make it 100, in order to make our interpretation 100% accurate, what we normally do, we will always try to do resistivity also in alongside with the half cell survey locations as a reconfirmatory test. Like actually, for example, if half cell potential is showing that the corrosion, if the corrosion activity is certain in that area, and if that is again being underlined by resistivity survey readings, then we can conclude that corrosion is 100% certain there in that area. That way, as a reconfirmatory test to confirm corrosion activity, we are doing this resistivity survey also. Okay, sir. Next slide. Now we come to the laboratory test side. Laboratory test side actually, as I mentioned earlier, all those samples when we extract during the field work stage, we will be dispatching to the lab, and in the lab we will be taking this core will be tested for compressive strength, and also I mentioned earlier degree of compaction. Also the course will be useful for find out the degree of compaction, because visually when we inspect that one based on the aggregate packing and everything, we can find out the how well it is compacted, and voids, any voids are there, honeycombing is there, presence of any voids, honeycombing, and also cracks. Then test samples, as I mentioned earlier, test samples, where we collected the test samples, we will analyze for chloride content. The chloride content will be analyzed in the lab to find out the chloride index profile. Same time, the sulfate content also will be analyzed in the lab to find out the sulfate content testing. Now we can move on to the next slide, sir. I think in some cases, petrography is very important, particularly when there is a fire blasted buildings, actually, because I came across a lot of, whenever there's fire occurred, fire blasted some buildings, in Oman government also appointing us to study and give them a full report, particularly to find out the extent, and because sometimes what happens in Oman generally, mostly limestones they're using. The heat properties are different when compared to the rocks we are using here. That's why it's very important. Making this thing and everything is very important to do the petrographic examination, particularly in the fire of buildings and everything. But some cases it's not required actually, because if the UPV test also will give some good values and everything. Because fire affected buildings and everything, you might be knowing, because I came up in my career there, actually I came across several buildings actually for building investigation and everything. We'll get a very good patterns and everything when we do ultrasonic pulse velocity tests also, because in the fire affected buildings we want to find out what is the extent of damage. That case it is very important to find out the each and every these things we find out. Even sometimes we will cut the steel from the structure and we'll test it out, how the steel properties affected and everything. The same like actually concrete cores we will take, and we will petrographically we will examine to find out any damages, internal damages happen to the concrete. That also there. Then again you can see petrographic examination can include determination of proportions of coarse and fine aggregates. Again, sometimes we can, if some doubt arbitration, some doubts come, if somebody suspects and some of the arguments come across the cement content, because sometimes we got a doubt whether cement content is not proper in that particular. In that one method is the petrographic examination, and another method is the chemical method. Chemical method we can do in the metal lab also. We can find out the cement content in a particular core. If we take a core, we can find out the cement content. But normally, as I mentioned before, for corrosion, we do both the tests together. Same way, in order to find out correctly, we want to find out the cement content, particularly in the complaint cases and everything, in arbitration cases and everything. Then mostly we will go for both these tests actually. One is chemical method as well, petrographic method, to find out the exact cement content in the concrete. That case is actually, one is chemical method, you have to keep in mind, one is chemical method, second is the petrographic analysis. We can find out the cement content in it. Then aggregate type, we can correctly find out what is the type of aggregate, as I mentioned earlier, because particularly some fire affected and damages and everything. A type of aggregate also an important factor actually. Sometimes limestone is more prone. Sometimes some rocks are more prone to the defects than the other rocks. That's why it's very important what type of aggregate that and everything. The condition of the aggregates, nature of the cement paste, including mineral additions such as PFA, slag, bond between aggregates and the paste, porosity of the cement paste, air entrainment. Yes, air content we can find out from the meteorological examination process of deleterious materials anything in the concrete. Depth of carbonation we can find out in meteorological analysis as well. Cracks, voids, and intrusions, evidence of sulfate attack, some forms of chemical attack, and alkali silica reactions. Particularly, you might have heard about ettringite actually. Sometimes a delayed ettringite can cause damages actually. That is not in the purview of the scope of our today's presentation. But whenever you come across a delayed ettringite case, particularly the pavements, this marine, this quay walls construction, marine breakwater construction and everything, most cases we came across delayed ettrigates and everything. In case of delayed ettrigates, there are no any other methods actually. Only petrographic examination can determine that whether delayed etringite can happen or not in the concrete. Because delayed etringite is also very important actually. Maybe you might be teaching in the book textbooks and everything. But I personally came across a lot of issues when delayed etringites were there. Okay. Okay, sir. Move on to the next slide, sir. Water permeability. These are not that very important, but some cases, what I'm saying is some clients, they wanted, particularly some in the coastal area, some bridges or structures are there. Sometimes durability is an area of high concern. That cases actually we can extract pores from sites and we can do water permeability test in the lab. We have got facility in the matter lab to do this water permeability test also. We can do it if somebody wanted to do the test. We normally, particularly in areas where there are durability concerns, we have to do the water permeability test. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. Okay, then the structural condition assessment. Now the last stage actually. But now once we completed the most of the tests and everything, now we wanted to interpret the results and all. That is also very important. Whenever we go for the report presenting the report and everything, one is the visual assessment of patient can provide useful information when done patients and then visual. One is the visual examination, the site. Whenever we go for investigation, we have to do a visual examination also. Particularly, I don't know whether I mentioned that one, particularly cracks and everything. From the crack pattern, normally when we go for any investigation, we take the crack pattern, crack depth, crack width, and crack length, and also the crack pattern. Because from the crack pattern and from where and where the crack appeared, at what age crack appeared, these things can give lot of clues actually to find out what is the root cause when we are to find out the causes of the deterioration, particularly for cracks and everything. That's why crack patterns, these things are very important. That's why whenever we go for any investigation, we wanted to incorporate this type visual assessment as well. Then delamination survey. Whenever we go for investigation, we have to do a delamination survey also. It's very easy test actually. With a small hammer, we want to knock it up. If there's a hollow sound comes, that means the area is delaminated. Normally, what we do actually depends on the this thing. Actually, we randomly select some area for delamination survey, and we will do that one maybe on an area of 2 meter by 2 meter by 2 meter area. We will do it, and we will give the report. And some area would be delaminated, then we want to go extend the area. We want to do more area to be incorporated in the delamination survey spot. That's easy test actually. From the hollow sound, we can identify the areas delaminated or not. Okay, cover survey. Cover survey, as I mentioned earlier, in the independent side also, we'll get all the readings, whether the rebar is at what depth the bar is embedded in the concrete, that will get, that's a cover. For example, cover is greater than 8 mm, but that is very good. Some specification, mostly no, my specification is about 50 mm. But in India, I'm not sure because it depends on the exposure conditions, different types. Some areas is 40 mm, some areas is 50 mm, but Oman, the minimum should be 50 for whatever the conditions. Measuring regions of closely spaced bars, steel congestion, we can find it out, and also measuring different bar types, sizes, and other magnetic materials nearby. If any other plant materials nearby, also we can find out using the cover surveys. Okay, so then move on to the next slide, sir. This I mentioned to you earlier also, chloride testing. After the chloride testing, we can find out the chloride content. From the chloride content also, we can say that actually if less than 0.4, probability of corrosion is low. And if 0.4 to 1, this percentage by mass of cement. Then 0.4 to 1, it is moderate, and more than 1, it is high chance of corrosion. This is a chloride testing. Again, this is one assumption. Another one is the chloride ingress profile. Up to what depth, particularly when we want to repair, then maybe we want to scalify some of the concrete. We want to remove, break it out, and we have to remove some surface area, cover area, and everything. Up to what depth we wanted to remove. That in that case, chloride ingress profile test is very important. From the up to what area contaminated, up to what depth it is contaminated, that part we have to remove, and we want to repair it with the new motor, repair motor, or with the new concrete. That way, chloride contamination is very important. If we correctly will not find out the chloride and we do repair, it will not sustain, it will not go long. Again, that repair again it will continue. The corrosion activity will continue again, and it will again damage the concrete. That's why we have to correctly find out whether that is chloride contamination is there. If chloride contamination is there, up to what depth the chloride contamination is there. And up to that depth, you want to scalify. You want to remove the concrete and you want to go to pipe. Okay, sir. Next slide, sir. Now the carbonation depth, same like same acid, chloride content. Carbonation depth also very important. Same like depth from surface up to what depth it is carbonated. That's important. That up to that depth, the concrete has to be removed, and we have to and we wanted to replace it with the new concrete or new repair material. Okay. Carbonation also very important. That's why we do the carbonation depth test. Okay, sir. Moving to next slide. Now we coming to the rebar potential, half cell potential assessment. This is what I told you. Millivolt. I mentioned you that actually minus is normally the reading is given in minus millivolt. If the reading is more negative than minus 200 millivolt, there is less chance of corrosion. We say actually 5% of chance of very uncertain. There is no chance of corrosion. If it is wrong actually. Okay. If it is to minus 200 to minus 350, there are 50% chance of corrosion. And if the half cell potential reading is more negative than minus 350, there are more chance of corrosion. There are 95% chance of the corrosion activity is taking place in that area. The corrosion potential is high. That is why, as I mentioned to you earlier, this electrical resistivity test is also very important. Sometimes what will happen, half cell potential reading will give you a reading 230. That means there is 50% chance only. Then in that case, in order to reaffirm there is corrosion activities there or not, we want to do this electrical. Next slide. Go on to the next slide, sir. Yes, electrical resistivity reading. That one. Now, this one also you can see. Less if the reading is, we normally this is kilo ohm, sorry, or centimeter. Less than 12, it is high. There is more chance of ohm centimeter. K is given actually, so the 1000 divided by 1000 actually. Normally ohm centimeter. I will speak in ohm centimeters, like confusing. Yeah, it's 12,000. Normally the readings in our equipment also I think ohm centimeter. If the reading is 12,000 reading, less than 12,000, there are, if the reading is like actually 5,000, 6,050 or whatever it may be, less than 12,000 ohm centimeter, there are high chance of corrosion. That means when our half cell is reading is 230 and the resistivity survey reading is 8,500, then we can assume that there are high risk of corrosion is there in that area. Then if it is reading is between 12,000 to 20,000, it's a moderate chance of corrosion only, moderate risk of corrosion only there. If it's more than 20,000, there's high risk of corrosion. So moderate. More than 20,000, there is no chance of corrosion. Sorry, I just took it the other way. If it's more than 20,000, there is no chance of corrosion. Okay. Move on to the next slide. Now, this one, just to give you a small brainstorming on that one. This is one area mostly we come across because there are some disputes come. For example, like the construction, the low cube strength results. That's why this is, even though it is not that much into this investigation scope, I particularly put this slide just to give you some idea on how you deal with the low strength result case actually. Whenever you come across a low concrete test result, we have to go for investigation. Normally we take course, we check whether how much strength achieved really. Then it is actually what we have to do in that case, how we have to interpret. As per ACA, so worldwide American Concrete Institute standard, if we go for example, in the particular column is failed in the cube testing, then we want to go for a core testing. Whenever court or whoever appoints us, actually we want to go for a core test. Then in the core test, if we take a group of 3 cores, it should be average should be more than 85% of the catalytic strength. For example, if 40 Newton concrete, 40 Newton grade concrete was, and there is a dispute came, cube test failed maybe at 25 or something like that. Okay, cube test given. When we took a core, if we take it as a sample of as a group of samples, as an average, it should be more than 85% of the 40 Newton grade. That means 85% of 40 should be obtained. If it is we are taking a particular single core, if you identify any individual core, it should be more than 75% of the catalytic strength. That's the strength in the nominal strength. That's again, it is a C40. M40 concrete, it is a 40 is the catalytic strength. If it's a M30 concrete, 30 is the catalytic strength. It's a 75% should be attained in the core test. Okay. Then again, non-destructive tests also there, ultrasonic pulse velocity, pull-out test and all could be done in parallel alongside in case of disputes. Now, next slide, sir. Before going to that one, as I mentioned to you, the assessment, the test results, once we do the test and everything, the process of assessment is very important because for the selection of remedial measures and what is the residual, what will be the residual performance of a particular structure, what will be the residual performance being left in for that particular structure, and also to find, also to select the proper remedial measures, the interpretation and assessment of the test results and doing investigation and assessment of the test is very important. That is the now we will mention about some. This is not, I have not included the scope largely, but just I want to mention give you some brainstorming on some of the test methods commonly widely used repair methods. These are the widely used repair methods. You might have all came across and you might have heard about that, but you will just have a refresher. One is the patch repair with the mortar, or I just read out that one. Various repair options are available, and new technologies continue to make an impact in the field of the repairs. Most of the repair strategies discussed here apply to carbonation and chloride induced damage to structure concrete. This being the most common. That's what actually most of the repair methods actually here are to address the corrosion induced issues actually mostly. Most common along with the cracking induced by thermal structural loading, and also the suitability and cost effectiveness of repairs depend on the process and level of iteration, and that is what actually in order to find out before we go, as I mentioned earlier, before we go for any repair, it's very important is actually to identify what is the actual cause of the problem and to what extent the problem is. Then only we can make an economical model to the repair. Otherwise, the repair will not sustain, will not be successful, and again the structure will go deteriorated. Again, it will be sometimes it will go again dilapidated, and that's why investigation and assessment of the results are very important before we go for any repair. Because based on that one only, we have to take an economic model and we have to find out a viable model and we have to find out the most appropriate repair methods. And repair method also a detailed, if you want to discuss that one, we have to discuss it as a separate session actually. It will again take maybe 1 or 2 hours to discuss on repair and everything, but I will just mention you that much. What is patch repair with the mortar or concrete? That's most widely used, as I mentioned earlier. Also, mortar, using mortar repair mortars are available now using sometimes sand, cement, and polymers. There are a lot of chemical mortars are available. Maybe if you go through BSF, a lot of chemical companies are there. If you go to their sites or everything, you get a lot of information on that one. But again, you have to firstly you have to find out the problem. Then you have to find out the best suit material and methodology suiting to the problem. That's the most important key factor in it. Then second is the crack repairs, sealing and filling of cracks. That is also most widely used repair method. Then the coating systems. These are all mostly newly developing these things actually, coating systems using for repair actually. But this reinforcement and everything, when we clear the covers or clear the area affected by chloride contamination or carbonation, then we want to clean the reinforcement bars exposed using sandblast or any method. Then you want to apply some coating systems as a barrier system to protect from corrosion, or maybe as passivating to passivate to make it passivated, and that are coating also very widely used now, but it's a newly developing field. A lot of developments are coming coming on top of it. Day by day developments are coming. And migrative corrosion inhibitors. This is one of the latest one, but one of the most newly developed area. Even in abroad, when I was in Oman, also very rarely only people were going for it. I don't know, maybe it's cost maybe high. I don't know what is the reason, but it's very rarely found used. But maybe we can try here. Maybe there's time come, it will also be that cheaper. It will become cheaper. And the demand become more. Maybe the products will become cheaper. That way, we can expect maybe in the future it will become popular. The electrochemical techniques are there. Electrochemical techniques are there. Then again, electrochemical cathodic protection is there. Then this cathodic protection, electronic techniques and everything. It's performance also that I will after that together I will. Then the last one is fiber reinforced polymer, FRP, and carbon fiber reinforced polymer, CFRP. These are very getting very populated these days, particularly in Europe and US and all. Maybe I don't know. Maybe in India, what I heard actually, this Rashtrapati Bhavan or some repair is going on using this CFRP and all. And also calorie protection also they are applying there. I heard that actually some articles that I read actually recently. That means it's becoming popular here in India as well. But in other part of the world, it's very popular method these days. And cathodic again, all these repair method, whenever we do apply any repair method, particularly coating system and everything, it's a performance and electrochemical methods, cathodic protection and everything. We want to make sure the performance of the repair materials and performance of the repair methodology adopted actually. After the repair, how it performs, that also very important. And that's why coating, whenever we do a coating, we want to find out the coating thickness. That's why we in Master Lab, we purchased the equipment from America, one coating, this DFT gauge we purchased it from Defense for US. That is to find out whenever a coating is applied on the concrete substratum, for the concrete normal DFT gauges and everything will be applicable to metals only. That is the reason why we purchase it as a special equipment. Whenever a coating or any paint or whatever may be applied to a concrete substrate, we can find out the thickness also. That gauge also we bought it from US actually recently. I think 3-4 weeks before we bought it from US actually. That's also available now in Kerala. You can, whenever you go for coating systems and everything, it's very important coating thickness. Then lot of electrochemical techniques are there. Cathodic protection. This is cathodic protection and everything. Very, whatever it's a very effective method. But if any small what happens actually portholes or this any porthole or any pinhole or whatever will happen, the total system will go not effective. That is why it's whenever you go for cathodic protection electrochemical methods, proper monitoring system also should be there. Otherwise, better should not go with it. Because for years actually we are doing these protections and everything. That's why we particularly cathodic protection and everything. If we lack a correct monitoring system, it is as good as we haven't done it. Okay. Okay, sir. Go to the next. Can move to the next session. Okay. Now we come to the economics of repairs. That also, whenever you go for repair, some of the points I already mentioned in my previous slides and everything. That's why just to give you a good fire about that one. But economics of the repair also very important. repairs of reinforcement concrete structures damaged by corrosion have often proved to be unsuccessful with the further damage occurring after repair. Reason for the poor performance of repairs include. This is what I in the previous slides also I mentioned about. I have indicated about this because many cases actually repairs are found to be unsuccessful. These are the main reasons, sir. We just point out lack of understanding of declaration process and inadequate investigation and testing prior to repairs. Because just what normally I see actually not to save the money, people sometimes will go, some structural engineers will come, they will visually assess that one, so the damages, and they will say some repair. It will do that one, but that will not go long. That will not go effective. That's why whenever you plan any repair, any large repair, particularly the small buildings and everything, still the repair will not last. Whatever repair, small or large or anything, at least some investigation, some tests has to be done. Other, at least, okay, if you got the correct clue on the correct root cause, a correct cause, what led to that, what has caused this, what is entitled to these declarations, then no problem. That small buildings or small structures. Now, otherwise, in all buildings, all structures, you have to before you undertake, before you carry out any repair, you make sure that's properly studied, you properly understand what are the process of that repair, and sometimes inadequate funds to undertake such spectral repairs. That also a factor. Apart from this one, sometimes what will happen, they will shortcuts will apply. That's what happens actually after the investigation, these things, and sometimes the structural engineers will give the correct comprehensive purpose, precise purpose, and a correct. Sometimes what happens, we have one associate with the section, Dr. Ravindra, maybe Matthew might be knowing. Normally, whenever we do investigations and everything, some consultants like we and partners, Dr. Ravi and all, we together we develop a repairing specification as well. For the repair work specification also they develop and give actually. At that time, so if they correctly follow that repair specification and everything, it will be very successful. The repair process is very successful. In the matter lab now, when we undertake any investigation, we'll give them a repair this thing and everything, and correctly we will use Dr. Ravi's this thing service also on that one. And also, if someone any clients wanted, we can develop a specification also. What are the specifications? What are the tests to be conducted? And how we can evaluate the performance. That all, everything would be there in the specification. And what are materials to be material specific, everything would be covered in the specification, repair specification. When we develop that if any repair work will go, any large repair work, we should have a correct specification to be developed for that repair work. At most cases, what will happen? Inadequate funds that will cut the hands actually, that will limit them to go for a satisfactory repair. Sometimes ineffective and inappropriate repairs being specified. That's what I mentioned to you. If we do casualty protection, these types specified jobs and everything, we should have expertise people to do that one. Recently, we got one job actually. There are sacrificial efforts they are using. When we found out when we were about to build that project actually from UNCC, yes, we found out that one. There is we couldn't find out anybody who is that much experienced with that type of repair actually. In that cases, if we go for repair works without any expertise in it, if we don't have an expertise, it will not be worth to go for that. It will not be worth to adopt that procedure. Then poor supervision and implementation of repair on site. That's what I told you. You should have to develop that specification, and you have to make sure that specification is being followed. Now, one good thing is there. Until 2015 and all, we were not having any even BS British Europe. In Europe, there were no any specification for concrete repairs and everything. But there is one new specification. I think it's BS EN 1504. EN 1504. You can check in the internet and everything. There's new standard British BS, but the standard the committee had developed a new standard as well, new specification for the concrete repairs as well. That's a good indication. When I was in Oman, the later stage and everything, we used to refer that standard. BSEN 1504 as a specification. When we go for any repair, we can use BSEN. EN 1504 is a very useful standard. Anybody can use that standard. And there are a lot of ACA codes also there. Some of the ACA codes I think I have mentioned already in this thing. Maybe Matthew or somebody will share you with this slide. You can go through those references, will be useful to you when you go for repair districts and everything. And also, hello. The timing of treatment.
Yes, we will
Okay.
share. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. The timing of treatment is crucial since corrosion rates and damage increases with time. The treatment timing and a structure that has been neglected and allowed to reach an advanced level of damage will not respond to quick fix solutions. That's what actually most time people go for shortcuts and quick fix solutions. Most cases quick fix solutions will not work. These are the areas actually economics about the repair. Sir, you can move on to the next slide. Now, when we move on to the final listings of the slide, I have just I would like to talk about you some of the methods we generally follow in MathLab. As I mentioned earlier, we have developed a laboratory here under ULCC. It's an independent lab actually. Anybody can use service actually. Then MathLab actually we have most of the tests we have covered already in this area, but this will be as a useful as a guiding tool. You can use this one. Whenever you
Okay,
sorry for that.
Okay, sir, no problem. Well,
Okay.
you can
Then
continue.
half cell potential, I already mentioned that everything, and you will get the how we'll do the half cell potential. Everything is already described in that one, and that would be that you can use it whenever you want to go for a half cell potential survey. You can use this as a reference gate. Now, sir, move on to the next slide, sir. Okay, cover meter survey. As I mentioned, you normally will take 1 meter by 1 meter grid, 1 meter area. We'll make it into different grids and everything. That way, we are performing the cover meter survey. And cover meter survey testing is to detect the position of the steel reinforcing bars and the distance of steel reinforcement bars beneath. That's what I mentioned in the previous slides also. The depth of carbonation test, how to perform the test, and what are the standards to be applied, and the carbonation, what are the objectives of what are the why we use the test. Everything is there in the this thing. Then the core testing for composite strength, as I mentioned earlier, drilling to obtain 75 or 100 mm cores and testing, and what is the standards to be applied for doing the testing. And it is core testing is being done to ascertain the following properties of concrete and composite strength. Strength, visual examination, and density, degree of compaction also. Then electrical resistivity. This is a standard Syria technical note 14143. This is the standard to be followed to perform this electrical resistivity survey testing. And the resistivity measurements are carried out. Or sometimes what happens actually is difficult for you to attain the standard. You can use the manufacturer's guidelines as well, because Syria technical note and UK specification actually. When our previous office, we used to get all these standards and everything from UK. That's why it was very useful for us. But here, maybe I don't know whether you people you can attain to the standards and everything. In that case, you can use the equipment, the user manual actually, the operating manual, the manufacturer's instructions you can follow in that cases actually. Whenever you have you lack any standard testing standard, you can use the manufacturer's reference guide. Then ground penetrating radar. Ground penetrating radar, as I mentioned, this one is a very useful tool, and most lately developed the latest developed method actually to find out the concrete quality, particularly large voids and everything. And as I mentioned, everything, if anything trapped or embedded in the concrete, we can find out using this method. Now you can move on to the next slide, sir. Then chloride diffusion testing. Actually, we haven't mentioned about the chloride diffusion in my previous slides and everything, but we just lately, very lately, before now in MathLab also we developed this method actually, but that is in the towards the end of 2018-19 only this method got evolved actually, got very popular in Europe and everything. Particularly this method has been developed by Denmark actually. There's a Danish standard is there called NT-build. This is mentioned here. NT-build 443. That is a standard for that one. This is a very useful test actually. For example, we can what is the residual life of the building actually based on the chloride contamination. Chloride diffusion is very useful to ascertain the remaining. You can mention, you can read as you can see in the right side column. Chloride diffusion coefficient test is very useful to assess the remaining service life of the structure in terms of chloride resistance. Based on the chloride diffusion test result value, we can the remaining service life we can predict for a structure. Is particularly in the marine structures. This is very useful test actually. Even some of the latest European projects and everything, they put it in the specification to do the chloride diffusion test at the time of concrete placing as well. For example, 50 years they wanted a service life, they wanted a chloride diffusion value correctly indicating it will value complying for that particular service life period. That type NT-build test is NT-build is a good standard actually. It's a Danish standard, and we follow that one. And we developed this method also here. If anybody wanted to find out the service life of a building based on the chloride diffusion parameter, then we can do that one. But I haven't that because that is becoming just popular only. That's why I haven't included in my previous slides. Then footing exposure. I mentioned to you earlier, footing exposure is very important. No, mostly people what they will do, they will study all the structure, but they will leave footing. They will not include footing in the study. But then in that case, it will not be complete. We want to expose the footing. We want to take samples from there. We want to study the footing, and also we want to inspect the waterproofing conditions. Sometimes waterproofing condition would be lacking. Then only we when expose the footing, we want to see how the waterproofing is. Waterproofing is there. What is the waterproofing thickness now? What is that is, as I mentioned, you dry film thickness, DFT gauge. We have to use the DFT gauge. We want to find out the waterproof thickness, and if any rupture or any break happened on the any damage happened on the waterproofing, that also we want to inspect. Then small concrete breakouts that I mentioned to you in my previous listing. Actually, some cases actually you want to make small breakouts. Actually, 300 by 300 breakouts we want to make to see the actual condition of the steel. Some cases you want to go for the actual small breakouts. We want to make it out. Then structural load test on slabs and these things and everything. There's a standard BS 8110 part 2 and ACA standard is there. Because we generally do but what the problem actually, I normally don't recommend structural load test actually as a first this thing. Only as a last resort only, whenever you go for structural load test, it should be done as a last resort only, because what happens actually, load test, in my experience, what happens actually, load test itself can impair the buildings, impair the structure, because we are loading, if anything, if somebody put a lot of weight on my head, I'll go, my back will be broken actually. My backbone will be broken. Correct? Same way, if anybody put the ultimate load, this thing, everything, if you load onto the on top of a structure, definitely it may impair the structure. That's why, as a last resort only, we should go for it. But there is a test is there, and we can do the test also. As a last resort, we can do it up that one. That's why structural load test is there. And also, whenever we do structural load test, because previously we were using this cement bags, sand bags, these things and everything as far as a loading medium or concrete blocks, we put it in, and then we will put some dial gauges underneath at the soffit of the slab or whatever it may be to take the diffraction readings, and we'll monitor any cracks and everything. But that is very risky. We realized that one towards, because our company, British company, safety systems are very high, safety standards are very high, and our company stopped using that practice. And what we developed actually water as the loading medium. We whenever in Matter Lab also, whenever we go for a load testing, we will use only water as the loading medium, and we have the gears for that one and everything. Whenever you go for a structural load test, because our conventional methods are using sandbags, cement bags, and everything. Don't use that one. Whenever you go for the safest method is the water. The safest is the water. Water as the loading medium. Use water as the loading medium. Okay. Then pull-off testing. We have already discussed about the pull-off testing. Whenever there's old and new concrete joints, and whenever there's a bond between the concrete repaired areas and everything, because some area repair. When you go for concrete repair, as I mentioned, we remove some bad concrete and we use some repair material. Whether the repair is effective and the bonding is effective, we want to do an adhesive. How the adhesion test we want to do it, and that also there. Then pull-out testing of anchor bolts. Whenever sometimes some anchor bolts you want to find, to pull it out, and we want to see what the strength that one. We want to do the anchor bolt pull-out test. We have facility to do that one also. And even cladding screws, whatever it may be, we have the pull-out test facility here to find out the screw, the pull-out at what load it will pull off. That all we can do it. I think that's it. I think. Sir, next slide. Yes, that's it. Then there are some references are there. Okay, thank you. Thanks for your patience. There some breaks occurred. That's not intentionally that happened. Sorry for that.
No problem, sir. Thank you, sir. It's a time for discussion.
Discussions and questions. Yes.
Participants, if you have any doubts, you can please ask.
I can share my mail ID also, ma'am. In case anybody has some this thing or something like that, I can clarify through mails as well.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please provide your mail ID.
Yes, sure. Sir.
Participants, please ask any doubt, or you can put it in chat box also.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir. I have one question.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir.
Sir, actually, I'm a professor in SVKM's IoT Dhule, Maharashtra.
Yes,
So,
sir.
is like there are many institutes where we do not have many facilities for this testing or durable testing or quality testing for materials for our students as well as for us if we want to do some projects or some research work in the area of construction materials, right, sir? So,
Yes, sure.
do you think like how do you suggest
We can support you, sir, in that one. We are now recently some Nikmar Pune and all. We had a memorandum, MOU we have signed to give internship, these things and everything for the students. We have set up a matter lab. That's in the two international standards we have developed that lab, and there are
Okay.
full-fledged facilities there. And also, even as you mentioned, sir, the durability test, RCPT, rapid core permeability. Apart from this investigation side, whenever you go for
Yes.
marine structure and everything, we want to do the durability stuffs actually. If the building want to sustain long, if we want to guarantee the building or structure for more than 50 years and everything, we want to follow certain durability specifications as well. Correct, sir? In
Yes,
that case,
sir.
we have the tests such as RCPT, rapid chloride permeability, water
Exactly.
penetration, din water permeability, then water absorption test is there, then capillary porosity, this rhylum porosity, then again this one chloride diffusion coefficient test we can do, chloride migration coefficient also. Chloride migration coefficient and RCPT are almost similar, but slight difference is there. Chloride migration coefficient we can do, chloride diffusion coefficient also we can do it up, sir. So all these facilities there, you have any research and everything, we can tie it up, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, I shared my email ID. I have two email
Sure, sir.
IDs actually. My ULCCS email ID also I shared. I'll share you with my MATLAB email ID as well. You can drop an email to any of the IDs are actually okay.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Definitely, I'll drop you, sir. I'll definitely communicate with you.
And also
Thank you
we are
so much,
warm welcome for your students or group of engineers who are maybe nowadays lot of people are coming and seeing our lab and everything. Whatever is actually it's only soft inauguration is only just to be open softly, but it's the actual inauguration would be CM or somebody would be inaugurating most likely. It is planned maybe next month or after next month. After that, we will be very aggressive in the market and everything. That's why we are slowly only we are now a lot of people, PWD and all these department people are all came and visited our lab. Most of the people, they are all very impressed and all seeing the facility and everything.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you so much.
And even a lot of some engineering also express their interest to visit the lab facility and all. You all are welcome, sir. Actually, you can take your students or whatever maybe. And now we have entered into a contract with LSGD to train their engineers. About 4,000 engineers we will be training in the next 2 years. We'll be training all their engineers in our lab and all.
Okay,
We already
sir.
signed a MOU with the government on that also, sir. Actually, you are also warm welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I'll definitely drop a mail to you, sir.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Thanks. So one question came from Biren, sir, actually. Sir, for rebound hammer test, how to minimize the effect of reinforcement inside the concrete on the test results? Yes, sir, actually, what we normally do, sir, actually, there are a lot of issues are there with the rebound hammer test results, actually, while we go for interpretation. What we normally do, sir, there is one method is there, ultrasonic pulse velocity. We want to, whenever you do, what you can do also, you can reinforcement bar using a cover meter, you can find out the orientation of the reinforcement bars and you can put the location. When you select the grid, actually, you can mark the location in the middle of the steel And whenever there is still congestion, I strongly suggest to do both the tests in parallelly, UPV as well rebound. And there is a graph also there as per the manufacturer's guide. Actually, there's a graph. Using that graph, rebound and UPV value, based on the UPV and rebound value, we can come to a we can come to a better result on that, sir. Biren sir, that is okay, sir?
I think it's okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay.
If you have any doubts, you can ask or put it in the chat.
Also, Biren sir, the most reliable method is the core test only, because I got a lot of experience when I appeared when there are court cases were there nobody is accepting the rebound hammer results abroad and all. I think in Europe, US and all will be the case would be the same. Mostly people will accept the core test results only in that case, but could be supported by these type tests and all. But core test results should also always try to be included, particularly in case of arbitration disputes and everything, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Participants, any doubts? Sir, I think we can conclude the session now. There is no more doubts. I welcome Professor Jiti Rose Eugene for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Divya Miss. Respected Head of Department, Dr. B.V. Matthews, sir, expert for the session, Engineer Freddy Somin, sir, dear colleagues and participants present here. I deem it is a great honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks to the eminent experts for the 8th session of our FDP, Engineer Freddy Somin, Assistant General Manager of ULCCS Limited, Calicut. We are very much thankful to you, sir, for sharing your knowledge on concrete structural condition assessment methods. Sir, share his knowledge on various factors affecting deterioration of building, in situ and lab testing methods, structural condition assessment, general repairs, concrete structural integrity test available locally on Matter Lab. Sir, I found it very much useful as you give comparison on which testing method is most suitable for finding out each properties of concrete and also interpretation of results, whether it is direct or indirect. Sir, you are detailing on procedures for the testing methods like core test, ultrasonic pulse velocity meter test, near surface test, strength test, cover meter for reinforcement depth and position scanning, half cell potential survey and resistivity survey for corrosion potential, core sample test and dust sample testing in lab, petrographic examination to find out material details, damage, crack, void determination, etc. And various structural condition assessment like visual assessment, delamination survey, cover survey, fluoride testing, rebar potential, etc. found very much helpful for all of us to gain more knowledge on this topic. Once again, on behalf of Civil Engineering Department of College of Engineering, Kidangur, and all participants attending the FDP, and my own behalf, I thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation and spend your valuable time with us for sharing the vital information on various assessment methods of concrete structural condition. Once again, I thank you very much to you, sir, for the wonderful and informative session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
A special thanks, Freddy sir. Sir was down with conjunctivitis, and then sir has taken the session. We are all very grateful to you for not creating a problem for us and conducting the session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Actually, Yeah, what happened? I don't want you to get in a trouble actually due to my distinct problems actually. That's why actually from yesterday I took a medical leave actually. Next 10 days I would be on rest actually. No problem, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your care, love and all, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.